This is the question I get asked the most as a therapist. How do I find a good therapist? If you want to find somebody that's a good match for your unique needs, you're going to need to find somebody who's a good fit for you personally. But the best way of doing this isn't actually finding somebody who specializes in the topics that you want to work on. Hi, I'm April. I'm a licensed therapist, and today we're going to be talking about what to look for in a therapist, where to look for a therapist, how to navigate all of the psychobabble that you'll come across when you're looking, and when is the best time to look. Numerous studies have shown that the therapist-client relationship lead to the best outcomes in therapy, even more so than the therapist's experience or the topic areas that they specialize in. So finding a therapist who's a good fit for you is the most important factor. This starts with knowing what you're looking for. When I know somebody who's looking for a therapist, usually I'll ask them a few of the same kinds of questions. One, for sure, I'll ask what kinds of topics are you interested in working on, if they're comfortable sharing that, but also practical things like location. Are you comfortable with online therapy? Are you looking for somebody in person? If so, are you looking in a certain geographic area? And other practical questions like, are you comfortable with certain gender over another gender? Are you looking for somebody who's more formal, or are you looking for somebody who's more relaxed and casual with you? Another really important one is actually, if you have extended health benefits, what types of professionals are covered by your health benefits, because different health professionals can be therapists, but your benefits may only cover some. Finally, I always like to ask people what helps when they're looking for help. So if you've been to therapy before, what things did you like? What things did you not like? And if you haven't been to therapy before, just when you talk to somebody like a friend or a family member, what works well for you? And you can look for those sorts of qualities in a therapist when you're looking. There's other ways that therapy can be delivered as well, besides just online and in person. Things like over the phone, text message, there's even walking therapy, but that will depend on the therapist, and there's different pros and cons to each. Generally, the closer that you are physically and being able to show your nonverbal communication, that can also be over camera like this, the more you'll probably get a connection out of it. But if that's a barrier for you, then these other options might be a good fit. The reason why I don't recommend trying to find a therapist based on the topics that they specialize in is because not only do the topics often have different names, we call them different things, but they can also be rooted in something else that we may not recognize yet, or we may also call that something else by a different name than the therapist calls it. So what I've seen happen oftentimes is people end up in therapy to work on one thing, and then they realize that's not actually what they need to work on, and now they're working with a therapist who specializes in this thing, but they've taken a bit of a pivot and want to focus on something else. And if the therapist isn't a good fit for them personality-wise, it can be a really hard pivot to make. However, if there's a therapist that you're working with on one topic who is a really good personality fit, and you make that pivot, they're going to be able to weave in and out of those topics with you in a more natural way, and using a therapeutic approach that works really well for you, regardless of the topic that you're working on. So where I've seen this in my work, I specialize in working with adults with ADHD. And so I'll often have somebody who comes in wanting to talk about their ADHD, and after a few sessions, they realize that what's really at the forefront of their issues isn't the ADHD or their productivity. It might be something like burnout at work. And so we're able to weave through those topics and peel back the layers and find the root causes and continuously work on that without any disruption to the therapeutic process for them, because it's a good match between the therapist and the client. Where do you look for a therapist? The most common place you'll probably think of is to do a search online. You'll probably come up with something like Psychology Today or another website which will list a ton of therapists, and it can be really easy to actually get lost in all of the options. So later in the video, we're going to get into how to navigate that, but I'll also mention it can be helpful to talk to friends or even ask on Facebook groups. Use your connections and ask if a therapist worked for somebody that you know, they might work well for you. And if you're looking for somebody in person, I've even just looked on Google Maps before and started to click around in certain areas of the map that are close to where I'm willing to travel or somebody I know is willing to travel for therapy. And what you'll often find when you do that is you'll find individual therapists as well as therapy clinics where there's more than one therapist there. So if you find the therapy clinic, you'll just need to look through each therapist in that clinic and try to find somebody there that you think is worth meeting or that would be a good fit for you. Okay, so you found some therapists' profiles online, but it's likely that you've found a ton of them and you have no idea how to narrow it down, or you've only found a few and you might need to expand your search. There's some key words that can be really helpful when you're trying to understand if they're gonna fit the style of communication or your personality or the way that you like to be helped. So some examples of this would be the types of therapy that they offer. For example, I find that you'll see CBT, which is short for cognitive behavioral therapy, is often listed for most therapists. This is a really common, really strongly evidence-driven type of therapy that most therapists will be trained in. So you'll find that that'll show up on their profiles. But what does it mean for you when you're looking? Usually, people who offer CBT or particularly specialize in CBT over other types of therapy are going to work for people who like to work through their problems more logically. They like to think through things more than feel through things. It's a very structured kind of way of going through therapy. You understand your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors, and you will track those, and then you may intentionally manipulate those or tweak them, let's say, in order to get the results that you're looking for. On the other hand, if you're somebody who likes to go deeper and wants to be understood and heard and have a chance to just tell your story, you might prefer something like narrative therapy. Narrative, understandably, is about telling your story and can take more time to unpack that. But then the way that that becomes a therapeutic tool is by rewriting the narrative. So understanding the stories that we tell ourselves and then choosing what makes sense for us and what's helping us versus what we want to look at through a different lens. Another one, if you're looking to get through deeper feelings and long-term wounds perhaps, there's lots of different therapeutic approaches for this, but I would often direct people towards EFT. You might see on therapists' profiles, which stands for emotionally focused therapy. That's also really good for couples. If you're willing to kind of work through emotions together, it can be really a strong way to build and reestablish a bond with each other through emotions. There's also parts work or internal family systems, might be listed as IFS, and that has to do with understanding the different identities inside of us that take over in different situations to help get us through that situation at the time. So it might be like the manager inside you shows up when you're at work and that's the part of you that just gets things done. But if the manager is showing up when you're dealing with that sort of deep wound or strong emotions, it might not be very helpful for you at the time. So that's the type of therapy that would help you work through those kinds of feelings that you're experiencing and how you manage them, and kind of shift inside yourself which part of yourself you navigate or have a relationship with those different experiences. If you're somebody who would prefer to just look forward at the future, put the past behind you and move on, then you might find, in addition to CBT therapeutic styles like humanistic approach, Gestalt, ACT, which is acceptance commitment therapy, or solution-focused therapy, strengths-based therapy, those are all really great options for being future-focused and not unpacking what's already happened to you in the past. It's a great way of working on what matters to you the most and orienting yourself towards those sorts of things. Another great one if you're dealing with really significant emotions, particularly if you're going through a particularly difficult time in life like crisis. DBT, or dialectical behavioral therapy, can be a really helpful option for learning skills to navigate and just work through those intense emotions during that phase in life. If it's not an intense phase, but you're also still wanting to learn some skills, then coaching is a great option. I will mention coaching is different from therapy. This is more like life coaching, but there's a lot of overlap there. So you may find that when you're looking for a therapist online. You've probably heard lots about mindfulness, meditation, and yes, there is definitely a place for that in therapy, and it will show up when you're looking for a therapist on their profiles. Mindfulness is often paired with different types of therapy, but similar to IFS and parts work and some of the other types of therapy, even cognitive behavioral therapy, it is an important piece of therapy for tuning into yourself and building self-awareness so that you can then make the kinds of changes that you're looking for. It's often the foundation that you need in order to build and get to the next steps of whatever your goals are for therapy. So for example, if you're looking to go to therapy to improve your social skills or your interpersonal relationships and understand what people mean when they're talking to you and you think they say this, but they actually meant this. Normally, when I'm working with somebody in that sort of situation, I would actually start with building self-awareness with them, and that would start with mindfulness. So there's various different mindfulness exercises. Feel free to comment below if you have a favorite. Another really great therapeutic approach you might come across is EMDR. It's great for processing unwanted thoughts or triggering memories, particularly if you're working through a specific traumatic event. EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing, and so it actually uses grounding in the present moment through eye movements. I'm doing this because you'll often follow the therapist's finger, but it can also use tapping or butterfly hugs, different types of approaches to ground you in the present moment while you're reprocessing the traumatic memory or event. And it's a way of actually rewriting the neural pathways to make that less of a triggering experience for you. If you're looking to work on relationships and how you interact with other people in therapy, besides just couples therapy and family therapy, you can actually work on your own role in a relationship in individual therapy, in which case you might find it helpful to look for a therapist who works on attachment theory or interpersonal skills. Also, communication-based therapy would be good keywords to look for. Of course, this is just a starting point, and so if you read a therapist's profile that really resonates with you, the best thing you can do is just reach out and ask. Ask them what they like to work on and if they think that it would be a good fit. The best thing is that most therapists these days will also offer a free 15-minute consultation. So I always recommend that people shop around, however many people you have the capacity to go see, maybe like 3 potential therapists. Take advantage of that free 15-minute consultation and just see what it's like to talk to that therapist. Because although I've given you this whole list of different terms that might be good starting points when you're reading profiles, at the end of the day, nothing can really replace the feeling you're gonna get in your gut when you talk to somebody, and you're gonna know if it feels right for you. The best time to book a therapist really is when it's best for you. The only caution I will give you is that the end of the calendar year is usually the hardest time to get a booking, or you might need to book further in advance because a lot of people with extended health benefits are using up their benefits at that time. And so December, for example, is going to be busier for therapists. The rest of the year ebbs and flows, so just find somebody at the time that works best for you. If you're located in Canada and you're looking for a therapist, feel free to check out the link to my therapy website in the description down below to see if me or somebody on my team would be a good fit for you.